Today I'm going to try to draw this mineral spring in Borjomi, Georgia, and this is actually named Ekaterina Spring after the daughter of a Russian nobleman who brought Ekaterina, his daughter, to the springs for the purpose of treating her illness in 1841. Apparently, after a short time here, she made a full recovery, and news of that spread throughout the Russian Empire, turning the spring and this entire area into a fashionable health resort, which led it to becoming this mineral water park and bottling plant, which is off to my left, in 1850 and 1854 respectively. Not only can you still walk up and collect your own water directly from the spring, but Borjomi water has become a significant Georgian export, delivering all over the world, so there's a pretty good chance you can pick some up if you're interested. Borjomi in general is quite a small town, and for a long time it has served as a quaint destination for those who could afford it, namely one Joseph Stalin, who had a summer residence here. Interesting stuff, I'd say, but history is not the only reason we're here today. I would also like to try my hand at drawing it, which I think turns out okay by the end. Also, there were a few funny occurrences along the way, which you'll notice throughout the video. There are numerous bystanders, the light goes wild a few times, and I have some visitors, which I sort of predicted I would a few videos back. If you don't remember that, you'll see soon enough. Anyway, as you've noticed, I've started this off with lots of plotting and planning. The central focal point, this domed structure above the spring, needs to be taken care of with care. Taken care of with care. Great sentence, wow. But because it's so dominant in the scene, I want to make sure that I don't make too many mistakes right off the bat. Ultimately, the proportions are a little off. I make it a bit too narrow and as though I was viewing it from a lower perspective. But all in all, it worked out just fine for me. I'm glad I'm starting here because for one, I get to kind of build out from this center point, which I just really find enjoyable. It's like reminiscent of towers. And for two, being the primary subject, or I guess the only true subject here, I don't want to leave it behind and scratch it in later down the line. So there's plenty that sits in front of it, like closer to me in frame, but I'm not too worried about losing any of that because as you can see, I'm not making anything about this structure overly bold or solid just yet. I just want to do what I can at the beginning to get these lines down with reasonable accuracy so I can build myself a nice foundation. And that worked out. So from there, I'm shifting my view, starting to focus on all of the other little details that surround this thing. And the first piece that catches my eye is right in front of me, which is this circular walkway along with these benches. Speaking of, I'm totally winging this walkway. I don't understand exactly how I'd go about finding the perfect curvature or whatever of this path. So I'm going on instinct alone, just hoping it turns out okay. I'm trying to visually measure it against other surrounding elements. So for instance, its distance from the bottom of the spring, but unless I once again plot a bunch of points, that doesn't help me much with regard to the curve itself. So yeah, this part's not amazing, but I'm not really concerned. The benches, however, they are weird and small and not great. But honestly, the last thing in the world I want to do right now is spend an entire 8 minutes or whatever on these benches, because if you saw the video from the park in Tbilisi from a few days ago, that would be all too easy. I wasted so much time on that bench and the rest of the drawing suffered for it. Although the bench did end up looking a lot better than these will. Also, it was in that video that I predicted what will happen in this one, so that's a clue for you. So it's raining, at least on the left. You can see it if you look closely. That was one of the little happenings we experienced today. Thankfully, it wasn't too bad. It only drizzled for a few minutes, and only while I was recording the reference video. So it was long gone by the time I sat down to draw, thankfully. I will say this. That part of making these videos, the unforeseen and uncontrollable circumstances, I don't enjoy dealing with very much. Not because they're, things to be dealt with while filming or whatever, but because they're just extra things in the way of learning how to draw. There are already so many speed bumps to this process, ones I've signed up for, to be clear. But when other stuff gets in the way, like the weather, it gives me this instantaneous, powerful realization that if all I wanted to do was draw, there's such a better way. At the end of the day, that's not the only reason I'm doing this, which is why I keep doing this. But it's funny to think how much easier this process would be, how much more efficient it would be if I just sat at a desk and tried to draw things. I just find it hilarious. That being said, if you've enjoyed these videos, watching me struggle my way through the process, whether by way of bad drawings or rainstorms, I'd simply love it if you'd subscribe to the channel. Just like with the drawings, there are peaks and valleys along the way, but over time, we're getting there, slowly making progress, slowly getting more people to watch these videos. So yeah, if you enjoy these, subscribe, leave a like, comment something random. It all helps. So Borjomi, what a nice little town. My wife and I took 3 days to stay and kind of unwind here, fitting with the history. And being just a couple of hours from Tbilisi, the capital, it's an easy option if you want to just get away from the energy of the city for a bit. We're actually here belatedly celebrating our 11th anniversary, which is wild. Time has flown by, it's unreal. And this made for a lovely little escape. We didn't do anything big or fancy, which is pretty typical, honestly. But we wanted to spend some time together without having to plan around what might have been going on in town, or, feel like we needed to go out and do all these things, even though it's usually not our vibe, as the kids say. So this was pretty much perfect for us. We've already had some Georgian wine, which I spoke about recently. We always get Saperavi, I think it's pronounced, which is, I don't know, I'm not a huge wine person. Not that I don't like it, but that I just don't drink it all that often, and also completely lack the vocabulary to describe it. But this wine, Saperavi, is up there for me, probably top 2 or 3. It varies a little bit place to place, and I know there are different ways of making it or storing it or something like that, but on the whole, it's fantastic. And I especially like it when it's a little cold, which I understand is not typical for reds, but wow, I could not care less. It's amazing. They say it's dry, I guess, but I don't think so. I don't think it's overly dry. And it has this like brighter, almost tanginess about it. Wow, I can't imagine anyone who cares about that wine is listening to this, but if they are, I'm sure they're rolling their eyes. I could be dead wrong about all of that. Anyway, so there's that. And also we've had plenty of Georgian food, which we adore. And actually for our previous anniversary, we were in Montenegro and we went to one of our favorite Georgian restaurants in town. So I guess there's a theme brewing. But yeah, it's been nice so far. We're having a peaceful time, enjoying each other's company. And I'm sure I'll get another drawing or two before our time is up, which is possibly all you really care about. So as you can see, just kidding, no you can't. This was another one of the silly things that happened during the course of this drawing. And I'll tell you what, it really got on my nerves in the moment. Anytime the light changes so dramatically like this, it bothers me a lot because I either need to go in and edit the colors and everything, or I need to not care, which is what's happening today. I cared so much at the time, but I just can't be bothered to deal with it. There's not much I can do anyway, and I'm sure you couldn't care less, so we'll together just have to enjoy it for what it is. We go from rain to sunshine just like that though, which, if you think about it, is some serious production value. You don't see this kind of variety every day. Speaking of variety, get a load of this guy. What does he think he's doing? This is what I mentioned in the video with the bench. This dog is a stray, just out here looking for attention like all the other dogs in Georgia. And well, looks like he got it. Him and his friend are gonna hang out here through the rest of the video. So if at any point you get bored of watching me draw, which, ouch, first of all, you can, look directly past the paper and stare at these two to your heart's content. Okay, we're in the home stretch now, which is good because I'm still kind of fuming over the bright as the surface of the sun paper we have here. Not only because I knew it would be annoying for the video. Maybe it's annoying to you, maybe not, I don't know. But also because I could barely see what I was doing. It was a real mess. But anyway, at this point, I've drawn at least the basic structures of pretty much everything in the scene. So now I can go back and add all of the smaller things that weren't pivotal to crafting the foundation, but will add a level of detail that without it, the drawing would look unfinished, at least to me. So there's a lot of random foliage that I still need to deal with. There are some foreground components like the curved planter on the right, as well as the ground texture, which I hate oh so much, oh my God. And maybe most significant, there's the remainder of the metal beams and things within the dome itself. By the end of this, I do absolutely nothing to imply the transparency of this dome, primarily, no, singularly, because I don't know how to. I guess I vaguely understand the concept. Like if I had to figure it out, I'd say, let's see, I'd need to pay attention to how the reflections of trees make it dark and how the reflection of the sky makes it light, as you can kind of see. And then the beams on the inside that you see through the glass, those are dark because they're pointing away from the light, whereas the beams facing me on the outside of the glass are light. But not only do I not have any of that stuff in my head as I'm drawing, nor do I have the precision to pull it off, I don't have the time to worry about it. I knew going into this that whole aspect of this drawing would not come to fruition, so I didn't worry about it. I was focused on the line work above all, which you'll notice by the end. I didn't focus on shading really at all in this drawing, and that's why. I knew that if I made any one thing super dark and contrasted, this dome would look even more incorrect, and we can't have that. That would be insane. So I left everything relatively simple. Great. So how do you like the cable car? Because that was my favorite part. In fact, maybe that's the only reason I decided to draw this. I just needed some way of including it into a composition, and I found it. Is that the truth? Who knows? I'll never tell. Anyway, the drawing isn't spectacular. In fact, I think it's a little lackluster, but as I've said before, this, I think, has this like sneaky prescience about it, like it's foreshadowing a future ability. Overall, there's a lot here that's getting pretty close, or already is close enough to being pretty neat and clean, and it's just waiting for those add-ons that I can't yet provide. But that's a good thing. It means I'm building up the foundation, and it's only a matter of time before I can start adding the necessary things to bring scenes like this one to life. So let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe, like, all the rest of it. I appreciate all of it. And I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.